by Anne Rice. You can't see. All right, here we go. Reason had altogether left me, so that I was consummate rage, and when he came through the broken glass, we fought. We had never fought before. It was hell that stopped me. The thought of hell, of us being two souls in hell, and grappled in hatred. I lost my confidence, my purpose, my grip. I was down on the floor then, and he was standing over me, his eyes cold, though his chest heaved. "You're a fool, Louis," he said. His voice was calm. It was so calm. It brought me around. "The sun's coming up," he said, his chest heaving slightly from the struggle, his eyes narrow, as he looked out at the window. I've never seen him quite like this. The fight had got the better of him in some way, or something had. "Get in your coffin," he said to me, without even the slightest anger. "But tomorrow night we talk." Well, I was more than slightly amazed. Lestat talk? I couldn't imagine this. Never had Lestat and I really talked. I think I have described to you with accuracy our sparring matches, our angry go-arounds. "He was desperate for the money, for your horses," said the boy. "Or was it that he was afraid to be alone, as you were?" These questions occurred to me. It even occurred to me that Lestat meant to kill me, some way that I didn't know. You see, I wasn't sure then why I awoke each evening when I did, whether it was automatic, when the death-like sleep left me, and why it happened sometimes earlier than other times. It was one of the things Lestat would not explain, and he was often up before me. He was my superior in all the mechanics, as I've indicated, and I shut the coin that morning with a kind of despair. I should explain now, though, that shutting of the coffin is always disturbing. It is rather like going under a modern anesthetic on an operating table. Even a casual mistake on the part of an intruder might mean death. But how could he have killed you? He could have exposed you to the light. He couldn't have stood it himself. This is true. But rising before me, he might have nailed my coffin shut, or set it afire. The principal thing was, I didn't know what he might do, what he might know, that I still do not know. But there was nothing to be done about it then. With thoughts of the dead woman and child still in any brain, and the sun rising, I had no energy left to argue with him, and lay down to miserable dreams. "You dream?" said the boy. "Often," said the vampire. "I wish sometimes that I did not, for such dreams, such long and clear dreams, I never had as a mortal, and such twisted nightmares I never had either. In my early days, these dreams so absorbed me that often it seemed I fought waking as long as I could, and lay sometimes for hours of these dreams until the night was half gone, and dazed by them I often wandered about seeking to understand their meaning. They were in many ways as elusive as the dreams of mortals. I dreamed of my brother, for instance, that he was near me in some state between life and death, calling to me for help. And often I dreamed of Babette, and often, almost always, there was a great wasteland backdrop to my dreams, the wasteland of Nitard, seen when cursed by Babette, as I've told you. It was as if all figures walked and talked on the desolate home of my damned soul. I don't remember that I dreamed that day, perhaps because I remember too well what Lestat and I discussed the following evening. I see you're anxious for that too. Well, as I've said, Lestat amazed me in his new calm, his thoughtfulness. But that evening I didn't wake to find him the same way. Not at first. There were women in the parlor. The candles were a few, scattered on a small table, and the carved buffet, and Lestat had his arm around one woman and was kissing her. She was very drunk and very beautiful. A great drugged doll of a woman, with her careful coif falling slowly down on her bare shoulders and over her partially bared breasts. The woman sat over a ruined supper table drinking a glass of wine. I could see that. Do-do-do-do. That the three of them dined. Lestat pretending to dine. You would be surprised how people do not how people do not notice that a vampire is only pretending to eat. And the woman at the table was bored. All this put me in a fit of agitation. I did not know what Lestat was up to. If I went into the room, the woman would turn her attention to me. And what was to happen, I couldn't imagine, except that Lestat meant for us to kill them both. The woman on the settee with them was already teasing about his kisses, his coldness, his lack of desire for her, and the woman at the table watched with black almond eyes that seemed to be filled with satisfaction. When Lestat rose and came to her, putting his hands on her bare white arms, she brightened, bending now to kiss her. He saw me through the crack in the door, and his eyes just stared at me for a moment, and then he went on talking with the ladies. He bent down, blew out the candles on the table. "It's too dark in here," said the woman on the couch. "Leave us alone," said the other woman. Lestat sat down and beckoned her to sit in his lap, and she did, putting her left arm around his neck, her right hand smoothing back his yellow hair. "Your skin's icy," she said, recoiling slightly. "Not always," said Lestat, and then he buried his face in the flesh of her neck. I was watching all this with fascination. Lestat was masterfully clever and utterly vicious, but I didn't know how clever he was until he sank his teeth into her now, his thumb pressing down on her throat, his other arm locking her tight so that he drank his fill without the other woman even knowing. "Your friend has no head for wine," he said, slipping out of the chair and seating the unconscious woman there, her arms folded under her face on the table. "She's stupid," said the other woman, who had gone to the window and had been looking out of the lights. New Orleans was then a city of many low buildings, as you probably know, and on such clear nights as this, the lamp-lit streets were beautiful from the high windows of this new Spanish hotel, and the stairs of those days bung low over such dim light as they do at sea. "I can warm that cold skin of yours better than she can." She turned to Lestat, and I must confess I was feeling some relief that he could now take care of her as well. But he planned nothing so simple. "Do you think so?" he said to her. He took her hand, and she said, "Why, you're warm. You mean the blood had warmed him, said the boy. Oh, yes, said the vampire. After killing, a vampire is warm as you are now. And he started to resume. Then, glancing at the boy, he smiled as I was saying. Lestat now held the woman's hand in his and said that the other had warmed him. Ice's face, of course, was flushed, much altered. He drew her close now, and she kissed him, remarking through her laughter that he was a veritable furnace of passion. Ah, but the price is high, he said to her, affecting sadness. Your pretty friend. He shrugged his shoulders. I exhausted her, and he stood back as if inviting the woman to walk to the table, and she did. A look of superiority on her small features. She bent down to see her friend, but then lost interest until she saw something. It was a napkin. It had caught the last drops of blood from the wound in the throat. She picked it up, strained to see it in the darkness. Take down your hair, said Lestat softly, and she dropped it, indifferent, and took down the last tresses so that her hair fell blonde, wavy down to her back. Soft, he said, so soft. I picture you that way, lying on a bed of satin. Such things you say, she scoffed, turned her back on him playfully. Do you know the manner of bed? He asked. She laughed and said, his bed? She could imagine. She looked back at him as he advanced, and never once looking away from her. He gently tipped the body of her friend so that it fell backwards from the chair and lay without staring eyes upon the floor. The woman gasped. She scrambled. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, why does it keep doing this? Oh no. This did this to me the other day, too. Oh my. Alright, we may have to skip a page. Interesting. Oh, here we go. Pretending to dine. They must exist. I don't know any reasons why they shouldn't exist in great numbers, and I am confident I shall find vampires who have more in common with me than I with you. Vampires who understand knowledge as I do, and have used their superior vampire nature to learn secrets of which you don't even dream. If you haven't told me everything, I shall find things out for myself, and from them, when I find them. He shook his head. Louis, he said, you're in love with your mortal nature. You chase after the phantoms of your former self. Frenier, his sister, these are images for you of what you were and what you still long to be. And in your romance with mortal life, you're dead to your vampire nature. I object to this at once. My vampire nature has been for me the greatest adventure of my life, and all that went before it was confused, clouded. I went through mortal life like a blind man groping from solid object to solid object. It was only when I became a vampire that I rejected the first time all of life. I never saw a living, pulsing human being until I was a vampire. I never knew what life was until it ran out in a red gush over my lips, my hands. I found myself staring at the two women, the darker one now turning a terrible shade of blue. The blonde was breathing. She's not dead, I said to him suddenly. I know. Let her alone, he said. He lifted her wrist and made a new gash by the scab of the other and filled his glass. All that you say makes sense, he said to me, taking a drink. You're an intellect. I've never been. What I've learned from listening to men talk, not from books. I never went to school long enough, but I'm not stupid. You must listen to me because you are in danger. You do not know your vampire nature. You are like an adult who, looking back on his childhood, realizes that he never appreciated it. You cannot, as a man, go back to the nursery and play with your toys, asking for love, care to be showered on you again simply because now you know their worth. So it is with your mortal nature. You've given it up. You no longer look through a glass darkly, but you cannot pass back to the world of human warmth with your new eyes. I know that well enough, I said. But what is it that is our nature? If I can live from the blood of animals, why should I not live from the blood of animals rather than go through the world bringing misery and death to human creatures? Does it bring you happiness? He asked. You wander through the night feeding on rats like a pauper. Then the moon at Babette's window, filled with care, yet helpless as the goddess who came by night to watch Endymion sleep and could not have him. And suppose you could hold her in your arms and she would look on you without horror or disgust. What then? Short years to watch her suffer every prick of mortality and then die before your eyes. Does this give you happiness? Oh my gosh. This is insanity, Louis. This is vain, and what truly lies before you is vampire nature, which is killing. For I guarantee you that if you walk the streets tonight and strike down a woman as rich and beautiful as Babette and suck her blood until she drops at your feet, you will have no hunger left for Babette's profile in the candlelight or for listening by the window for the sound of her voice. You will be filled, Louis, as you were meant to be, with all life that you can hold. You will have hunger when that's gone for the same, and the same, and the same. The red in his glass will be just as red, the roses on the wallpaper just as delicately drawn. You'll see the moon the same way, the same flicker of a candle, and with that same sensibility that you cherish, you will see death in all its beauty, life as is only known on the very point of death. Don't you understand that, Louis? You alone of all natures can see death that way with impunity. You alone, under the rising moon, can strike like the hand of God. He sat back now and drained the glass, and his eyes moved over the unconscious woman. Her breast heaved and her eyebrows knit as if she were coming around. A moan escaped her lips. He had never spoken such words to me before, and I had not thought him capable of it. Vampires are killers, he said now. Predators, whose all-seeing eyes were meant to give them detachment, the ability to see human life in its entirety, not with mawkish sorrow, but with thrilling satisfaction in being the end of that life, in having a hand in the divine plan. That is how it is, he answered. You talk of finding other vampires. Vampires are killers. They don't want you or your sensibility. They'll see you coming long before you see them, and they'll see your flaw and distrusting you. They'll seek to kill. They'd seek to kill you even if you were like me, because they are lone predators and seek for companionship, no more than cats in the jungle. They're jealous of their secret and of their territory, and if you find one or more of them together, it will be for your safety only, and one will be the slave of the other, the way you are of me. I'm not your slave, I said to him, but even as he spoke, I realized I had been his slave all along. That's how vampires increase, through slavery. How else? He asked. He took the girl's wrist again, and she cried out as the knife cut. She opened her eyes slowly as he held her wrist over the glass. She blinked and strained to keep them open. It was as if a veil covered her eyes. You're tired, aren't you? He asked her. She gazed at him as if she couldn't really see him. Tired, he said, now leaning close and staring into her eyes. You want to sleep, yes? She moaned softly, and he picked her up and took her into the room. Our coffins rested on the carpet and against the wall. There was a velvet-draped bed. Lestat did not put her on the bed. He lowered her slowly into his coffin. What are you doing? I asked him, coming to the door-sill. The girl was looking around like a terrified child. No, she was moaning, and then, as he closed the lid, she screamed. She continued to scream within the coffin. Why do you do this, Lestat? I asked. I like to do it, he said. I enjoy it. He looked at me. I don't say that you have to enjoy it. Take your aesthete's taste to pure things. Kill them swiftly, if you will, but do it. Learn that you are a killer. Ah, he threw up his hands in disgust. The girl had stopped screaming. Now he drew up a little curved-legged chair beside the coffin. Crossing his legs, he looked at the coffin lid. His black varnished coffin, not a pure rectangular box as they are now, but had tapered at both ends, and the widest where the corpse might lay his hands upon his chest. It suggested the human form. It opened, and the girl sat up, astonished, wild-eyed, her eyes blue and trembling. Lie down, love, he said to her, and pushed her back. and she lay near hysterical, staring up at him. "You're dead, love," he said to her, and she screamed and turned desperately in the coffin like a fish, as if her body could escape through the sides, through the bottom. "It's a coffin, she cried. "Let me out." "But we all must lie in cons eventually," he said to her. "Lie still, love. This is your coffin. Most of us never get to know what it feels like." "You know what it feels like," he said to her. I couldn't tell whether she was listening or not, or just going wild, but she saw me in the doorway, then lay still, looking at Lestat, and then at me. "Help me," she said to me. Lestat looked at me. "I expected you to feel these things instinctively, as I did," he said. "When I gave you that first kill, I thought you would hunger for the next and the next, that you would go to each human life as if to a full cup, the way I had. But you didn't. And okay. Well, time's up. Time to hit the day at a full schedule. Well, thanks for watching. I will see you next time. I will see you tomorrow while we continue reading Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. Can you see it? And these episodes will end up on YouTube for your enjoyment. If you enjoyed, I always enjoyed reading The Lost Boys, and you add a splash of romance, you have Vampire Juice. Amanda and Sean stumble upon a mysterious can of juice while searching for Halloween costumes at a local store. Despite being kicked out by the sales clerk, they become obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the strange drink. With the help from some local bullies, they sneak back into the store through a crypt in the graveyard, only to find themselves in the midst of a spine-chilling adventure. Well, thanks for watching. I'm just going to test this out, this invite thing. What does this do? Nothing? Okay. Well, anyway, I'll just go. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.